And here we...
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Taria Maynard.
And I'm Jania Patrick.
And, well, I guess the intro said it, but we're the Confessing Heretics.
Yes, we are.
No, we do have our podcast here, but we also do, I'm trying to record as we do, record video, that is, as we do the podcast. So, if you want to check us out, we're also the Confessing Heretics on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Just saying, if you want to see our faces, there are ways to do that. And if you're watching the video, we're snacking.
That we are. You might even hear it.
You'll hear
plates
it.
And our food, and this is, so if you couldn't tell, this is a very informal podcast, so welcome. We are authentically ourselves every single freaking time you tune in, so right now we are authentically eating.
Jania and I, we live in central Ohio, southern central Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
We'll keep it
there.
We'll keep it there. But we live close enough that we're gonna go to a festival later this afternoon. I do reporting for a local publication, news outlet. I'm never quite sure what to call it. It's called the Scioto Post. And we're based out of Pickaway County, and we do a lot of different, just a lot of different stuff, a lot of different news stuff. But I've been blessed to be a part of their group, and we're gonna go down and do some reporting on that. So that's gonna be fun. So if you want to see our faces even more, we'll be doing a video later. If not tonight, tomorrow morning I'll put it up, and then we'll go back tomorrow with the whole family. And we're gonna do more recording, and then there'll be a family time. Hey, we love family time. We're hangry. That's why we're eating, because it's just been one of those days. We're being authentic, right? It's one of those days where Jania and the kids and Tyler had a rough start with,
Oh, Lord Almighty.
with little Sailor. You eat, Jania. I'll talk if you
You're
want.
good.
You can tell your story if you want to. I'm not trying to.
No, my daughter got sick last night, so I was up all night with her. So that was my husband didn't feel good, so he was just kind of in his zone. So I was the parent that stayed up and took care of her, and I was so freaking tired this morning.
I bet.
I didn't respond to Taria.
No! What sucks is, I was, texting her, and I was, coming up, because Jania and I, as you will learn, or if you know us, you already know that, or you probably already figured out that we're busy people.
Word.
We got a lot of, what is it? What's in the fire?
Irons
in the fire. I don't know.
We do.
We're busy people. And so, you never know.
Taria does a bunch of social media stuff.
Yeah.
And I've got a bunch of spiritual stuff that I do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're trying to put those two things together in a couple of ways. Mm-hmm. So it's, we're just busy. And so today's just been one of those days, y'all. So we're going to munch and we're going to talk, but, is there anything you wanted to say before we kind of kicked off our day here, our podcast episode here?
So if you need to understand where we're coming from, who we are, you might want to listen to podcast number 1 a little bit more.
Yeah.
Our first episode definitely goes a little bit more into depth of what we're going to share with you.
Chicken, it's okay. Chicken tender.
Aww.
It's fine. It didn't fall on the floor or anything. It's right there.
There you go. But so it's good to kind of look back at that if that's something that you're interested in, knowing who we are, what we're about, what our vision is for this podcast. So, and you hear a little bit in the intro, but episode 1 really goes over that, more in detail. So, yeah.
Episode 1, I think of Star Wars when I hear the phrase
episode 1.
I don't know why. It just cracks me up.
Yeah.
So, Jania said it, we're informal. We're going to try and have some sort of order in the sense that we're going to, know what we're going to talk about ahead of time. But, and maybe as life goes on, we might try to be a little bit more scripted. But right now, we're kind of shooting from the hip a little bit. And Janine and I, we just kind of looked at each other right before we started recording, and we thought, well, what are we going to talk about, you know? And I had thought about it a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I said that I thought we would talk about our church
history, our lineage.
Yes, yeah. The lineage is the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
But kind of where we are coming from in a church perspective, like where just the churches we went to, I guess is what we're trying to say. And you know, and once again, if you haven't watched episode 1 for whatever reason, or you haven't figured it out, Jania and I are sisters.
Sisters.
Never were there such devoted sisters.
Yeah.
I was in the musical. I should know this damn song.
You should know this song. Wow.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Anyway,
We've only sang it to each other like for how many years now?
I'm sorry. I was just. Oh, I failed.
You. Oh, who cares?
Anyways. So we're, you know, Janine and our sisters, so we were raised together in the same household, and we went to the same churches up until late teens, early 20s.
So there was a time frame where I was going to church and everybody else was staying home. I'm not sure when that was.
That's when you and Tyler were together, though.
No,
right?
No, this was when I was a teenager. I was like 13 years old and I went like by myself for a while.
Interesting.
I went with Grandma Jeanette.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Back to...
And Grandpa John.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, so Jania's going to help me out because my memory only goes so far.
We're going to help each other out because same.
Yeah.
Same.
But, okay, so I guess... The first, so our parents, we can't speak for our parents. I'm only going to try and speak for myself and what has been told to me, because of course my memory only goes so far. But it's crazy the things that I remember, and the majority of the memories from my younger ages are from this church. You know, it was just, you know what I mean. What does that tell you? Oh, we spent a lot of time in church. I guess mom and dad, and of course my parents' relationship is a whole nother basket of roses that we can sniff later.
Yeah.
But mom and dad got married, and Jania said it in our first episode, but Jania and I are half sisters. Dad, the man that I refer to as dad, is Jania's biological father, who is my stepfather. But we don't say that because the man has raised me ever since I was 9 months old.
He's your dad.
He's my dad. So Jania and I are not full sisters; we're half sisters, but we don't acknowledge that. I don't acknowledge that. We were raised, so if it's interesting, if you look at our family, we're a nuclear family. 2 kids, mom, dad. And every once in a while, dog, guinea pig, cat, another guinea pig, another dog.
Something.
Something of some sort.
Always something.
But, so my parents got married, and at some point, I don't know what the details are, but my parents were attending, or started attending, New Life Christian Center in Lancaster, Ohio, where, like I said before, if you haven't read on our posts or anything, we are from Central Ohio. But this church was in Lancaster, and mom and dad attended it, and I don't know, like I said, the details. I just know that we went there when I was young, and I remember this church from being wee. And I've said it before, just because I base a lot of my milestones in different ways, and my church milestones I gauge like when Jania was and wasn't around. So when I reference the fact that I'm 4 years older than Jania, it's not just because I'm like, you know, like it's just I'm just referencing a point. That's silly, I know. But I realized I mentioned it twice in the first video, and I was like, well, that's a little obnoxious.
But
So pre-Jania is 4 years and younger, okay? And I have vivid memories of church before Jania was around. I was a young child, you know what I mean? It's bizarre, you know? Which I think that kind of speaks to how important church was to us.
Oh,
you
very.
know?
It was ingrained.
It was
ingrained in us. It was
Yeah.
ingrained in absolutely everything that we did. Like, we had an event, it was a church event. We went to a festival, it was most likely a church festival.
Yeah.
You went to a concert, it was a Christian concert. Anything and everything that you did. Like, Mom, it took her forever to actually let us, as a family, read Harry Potter.
Oh my
things
God.
like that, you know what I mean? Like, that's the family that we were.
Oh my God, that's a whole episode in and of itself.
Well, no Goosebumps either. Just saying.
Junia, oh my God.
That is. It is. But anyway, that's just to kind of give you a vision of the type of people that, and the environment in which we were raised. So, yeah. Sheltered. Very sheltered.
Very sheltered. To the point, which I stated once again in the last episode, I am 36 years old and still realizing that there are things that I don't know.
We just talked about this too.
Yeah. Just things that I'm totally ignorant. It's I feel like almost as I'm thinking about it now, I'm likening it to us living in a bubble.
Yeah.
Where decades of our lives, of decades of pop culture, just fucking passed us by.
Right.
Without us knowing.
Excuse me.
It wasn't until middle school when I started going to middle school and we weren't going in this, suburban school in Groveport, and it was, it was a good portion of white kids and black kids, you know what I mean? But
Right.
I never knew who Eminem was or the Backstreet Boys. For some reason, I remember vividly that I had a poster of Tony Bennett on my wall.
You always loved Tony Bennett.
I will say that, okay, I inherited my great-grandfather's, I think it was my great-grandpa, Grandpa Scobox, record player and his records, and I had records for a while, and I listened to oldies music all the time, and Tony Bennett, and and Robert Goulet, and real old stuff.
Oh my God, you and Robert Goulet.
But it was, so I just kind of
You remember those commercials with Robert Goulet?
Robert Goulet. I love, who did that? Will Ferrell, didn't he spoof Robert Goulet?
I think so. So.
Anyways, oh my God, that's hysterical. But yeah, so I in many ways ultimately I was the awkward Christian kid. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I had the hiccups. But yeah.
Fighting to always try to fit in somewhere outside of the Christian world. But even there, and I feel like this is why we are where we are today.
Jesus.
Even there, there was a major lack of fitting in.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where we didn't fit in.
We're always weird.
We're always weird. I always say that I never really felt like I had friends until I joined drama club in 9th grade. It's not entirely true because I have a couple of friends who I've known literally since elementary school, that are still Facebook friends with me, and and I might talk to one of them about her experiences with us because we brought her to church with us.
Yeah.
A couple of times growing up, and she was in that Secret of My Success, that musical. God wants me to be my best. I'm seeking His kingdom and His righteousness. That's the secret of my success. I can't believe you remember that.
Yes, I do. I remember Secret of My Success, dude.
Anyways, so
cheesy Pete.
Also, friends, Jania and I are Well, we're great singers, and when we do enjoy singing, and eventually we
Love the
will.
modesty.
Well, I'm stating facts here.
I'm screwing with you, man. It's cool.
Those are our gifts to the spirit. I'm laughing. Sorry, I'm being obnoxious right now. I've been thinking a lot about this, and I'm just feeling a little petty. But no, Ginny and I, our gifts are that we're great singers, we're great performers, we're great actors. Ginny is a great dancer. I'm a great stand-in singer while people dance around me. That's my favorite role, which is why I only go for lead roles, because those are the people who stand and sing. We were deviating way off the topic.
Yeah, we were talking about New Life.
We were talking about New Life. How did we get here?
We had fun. I don't know.
We had fun.
We had fun. We made it here.
We made it here. It's crazy.
It's okay. We're back.
We're back though. But I had a reason for talking about that. We'll come back. What was it?
I don't know. I wasn't in your brain.
You were not in my brain. We were thinking about the thing, and then we were talking about New Life, and this is what happens, friends. Is we just go off on tangents.
Yeah. So we were sheltered. We were really sheltered.
That's what. We were so sheltered, and once again, I look back and it's like our parents did what they thought was best. They did the best they could. They did what they were faithful Christian people, and they were raising their children to be faithful Christian people. So by all accounts, they did the best damn job they could with what they had. And they were raising us, which
we recognize we are not easy people. I still applaud my spouse for being with me for 14 years. I'm like, hey, you made it.
You made it, gold star. But no, I don't know how we deviated, but yeah, we were going.
Yeah, it's all good.
We were going to New Life.
So we went to New Life. Yeah, I was. You went there before I was even born.
Before you were born.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I remember I was the little kid that got carried around, and everyone was like, "Oh, Taria's so cute." And mom and dad mom was on the worship team. I think dad was on the worship. Dad was on the pastoral staff of some sort.
Did he do sound?
He did sound.
He always did sound.
He always did sound.
Yeah, always on the soundboard.
Dad's a great musician. But
has a great ear. It's a really great ear.
Man, here's the thing is over the years we've been told so many stories. Not stories as in their lives, but stories as in just stories about church and about the experiences that my parents and my family and I and my sister went through. And we'll just. You know what? Well, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, okay?
Say what you're going to say.
I'm going to say what I'm going to say.
Safe space. We are here in a safe space.
Well, so I just remember that Dad was a part of the staff in one way or another. Mom was on the worship team.
Makes sense.
And Dad was really involved with the pastor. And I remember, and I don't know why, but I just remember Mom told me that the pastor essentially had an affair. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things where I remember, I look back now and it's like, I probably shouldn't have known that. Because that came back to bite me in the ass later. This is a fun story. You ready for this?
Go for it.
Okay, so...
I've heard that story, by the way, that he had an affair.
Yeah, but no. You don't know this, I don't think.
Probably not.
So, I'm trying to long story short this, and it's not easy. Because of this affair, this congregation was in an uproar. The church split. People were leaving the church. I vividly remember we ended up leaving the church. And at this point, I remember we had moved to the Groveport area. Once again, I was around 6 years old, which means you were probably about two-ish. And we joined a new church that was forming from an old church that was located on Dempsey Road in the Westerville area. And it was some sort of Baptist church before. It was Pastor Frank Campbell. He was the original pastor of the original church. And then Pastor Ray Robinson was becoming the new pastor of Christ Community Church, which it ended up... I'm going to start crying.
It's okay.
These memories.
There's a lot of memories there.
Woo.
That was our life. That was our life.
Woo.
We spent, just to summarize here, we spent majority of our childhood and us being raised at Christ Community Church. That was our life. That was our experience.
Yeah. Sorry.
We were so involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that started a huge journey in our life.
Yeah.
Beautiful parts and not so beautiful parts.
The worst parts.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
And the worst parts. Yes.
Anyways, I'm okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, Mom and Dad came on, and I believe that at some point they were helping with the worship team or something, with the new church that was forming. And it was like the old building, new congregation.
Right.
And so we brought on all these new people, and I'm trying to, long story short, this really hard. And we were there for, like a decade and a half. I was 10, and then I graduated high school in 2005, 2005. I graduated high school 2005, and we were, and at that point. Oh man, there's so much, because at one point the church voted to sell the building at Dempsey Road in faith that we were buying new property in town
to build a bigger
church and a bigger facility, and everybody voted unanimously for yes. And I remember, because everybody in the church had a vote, and including the kids, and I remember I voted, and I almost voted no. Because I just felt like it wasn't the right idea. And it turns out it wasn't, because they ended up renting the Seventh-day Adventist church next to the property where they were building the new church, but they never broke ground because they ended up piling on these pastors and these ministries, and it was like they were putting the cart before the horse, and they were demanding money from the congregation more and more, and it just became really ugly. And then Jania had to come out and talk about her abuse.
Yeah.
And then I had to talk about my abuse.
Yeah.
And then our parents went to the...
Which we will talk about that. That will come up.
They will come up, but they went to the pastor, and I did nothing.
Yeah.
Because our main abuser, was still a fucking deacon at the end of the day.
Not only that, but they put in finances towards the church.
Yeah, that's the thing there.
They were a family, unlike, and I'm not saying anything against our parents, because our parents are great people, but, Mom and Dad were always like paycheck to paycheck. They were week to week, finances. So them, depositing a lot of money towards the church, or trying to support the church, wasn't in their wheelhouse. They were more worried about taking care of the two of us than anything else.
Yeah.
So, and they my God, they invested so much in you and I over the years. So we had some beautiful experiences as children, but that's another story.
Yeah.
So as crappy as our life in some ways has been, we've also had some really amazing moments too.
Yeah.
But anyway, coming back to this, you could see, and even as a child, you could hear it. And I remember sitting there, and as Mom and Dad were kind of talking to the pastors, because there was two head pastors at the time, and Mom and Dad were talking to them about what was going on, and it was like, how in Charlie Brown you hear the adults just go wah, 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 wah. I heard my mom and dad explain what happened. And then from there, it was like they started making excuses, and then I just heard that. It was like I just tuned out. It was like being traumatized over again, because you're putting yourself out there and you're saying, hey, this happened, and the people who are empowered to do something about it are choosing to not. And by doing something about it, I mean advocating for you, trying to support you, keep you safe, that kind of thing. Like they were not present for that. They were more worried about their finances. And I also feel like there was a lot of toxicity around, not believing people. And mind you, I will say this too, that was a time frame that was a little bit removed from where the actual abuse occurred a little bit.
Yeah.
However, it doesn't mean that it is any less, that the impact that it made in our lives was any less. And as a small child, you're terrified. It takes you a while to actually speak up. It really does, especially when you are, forced to not speak a lot. And what I'm saying about that is like, it's kind of ingrained in you. And that's, I feel like the power of the church sometimes is this, and I talked about this in the first episode, but just this indoctrination of, do what you're told. You do what you're told.
But with no explanation.
Right.
Never a conversation. Just here's the order, and that's what you get.
And if you don't fit into this box, you're not valuable or worthy or whatever. And that box included the fact that you didn't talk about uncomfortable things. You didn't, say how you really felt. You didn't tell like terrible experiences, especially about somebody who was leading a cell group, a Bible study every single.
Oh my gosh, I remember.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, like these people, were prominent family in the church that led a lot of stuff, that supported a lot of things, and you could just feel the pastors just kind of like immediately side with, supporting them. They didn't even want to investigate. They didn't even want to, gain any more information. And I feel like that was kind of the hardest part. Hold on, it's tilty.
Is it tilted?
Tilty.
Okay, cool.
Now we're gonna dabble back just a second here and make sure that we know what we were talking about. That way we don't.
Can you scoot a little bit?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
another frame, just a little bit. There we go. Okay, cool.
Hello.
Okay.
Busty Babes podcast.
This is the shit we haven't even actually recorded yet. So if you're watching this video, you're getting exclusive.
What the hell? You're gonna actually put it up? Jeez.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
All right. Okay. All right.
So let's
let's hear it real quick.
Technical difficulties.
So that definitely added like a new element to things that we didn't recognize that was previously there. And I know that these young girls who were also affected by the situation, probably didn't feel like they had the safe space to be able to speak up about it either. So, yeah, it just kind of sucks that it was something that, Taria and I tried to bring forward to everyone, and it ended up just kind of falling flat. Where, especially in a church community, you would feel like we should have the support,
Yeah, it sucks.
I did.
I remembered what I was going to say earlier. We got off on a tangent earlier.
Yeah, we did. Mm-hmm.
So the pastor of New Life Christian Center.
So journeying back in time, we're going back to New Life Christian Center. So this was the church that, Mom, Dad, and Taria were more so like remembering than I was, because I was like 2 years old. Right. Continue.
So the pastor had an affair.
Yep.
the church fell apart. I don't know all the details because I was a child, but I just remember the church, we left the church. And I found out later that
Paulina.
Dad was really, what you want me to do? Move that? Mom said that Dad was really hurt by the situation.
Yeah.
Which I can, I can only imagine if you're friends with someone and something like that happens. Like, I don't want to get into it because that's not my story to tell. But we left New Life and went on to Christ Community. But I just remember that pastor, his ex-wife and their kids came to the new church, Christ Community. And I remember I just have little memories of them. But I have this one memory where I don't remember who the youth pastor was or who the youth leader was. But they were talking to us about the 10 Commandments. And they got to adultery. And we touched on this before, but I was a very unique child in the fact that people thought I was very hyperactive and obnoxious and loud and spoke my mind a little too much. And it's true, because in that moment that the person, whoever was leading us, said, blah, 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 adultery, I went, that's what my old pastor did.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Junia, here's the point. Here's the worst part. The worst part, and it's not funny. It's like, oh God, kids say the darndest things, but it gets worse because, and I remember seeing it happen. His youngest daughter was right there.
Oh.
And she's older. She's a little older than us.
Ooh, painful.
You know who I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And I remember seeing her leave the room for some reason crying. I have that memory. But I never connected two and two together until later. Mom was scolding me because I had said something inappropriate. Because I said that. Once again, the naivety of a child. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that's what I was going to talk about earlier in reference to that affair. Excuse me, I got the hiccups.
And so those were situations right there that started teaching you about, what to say, what not to say.
Yeah.
And, we don't say certain things. We don't say certain things.
Well, I was socially awkward. I don't know about you, but I was socially awkward.
Yes, you do.
I don't know about you, but I was socially awkward.
We both were. We both were.
Jania, didn't you tell people you were a princess at one point?
Why? Why? Why do we have to go there? So we moved to a new school. And I was in 5th grade.
I was in 9th grade.
And I was terrified because I was so socially awkward and just really not great with people. I went home and falsified this document that I made on Word
No, you
docs.
did not.
I did. I totally freaking did.
That's amazing.
And it was, it was pink. It was not real. Let's just go there. It was pink. Yep. But to this day, I still have kids from my 5th grade class that would be like, Princess Jania.
That's hysterical.
I remember that. And I was like, yeah. Yeah, and the sad fact of the matter was, I just felt so out of sorts, I felt so unaccepted that I forced myself to do something to make myself feel accepted.
That's sad.
So it is really sad. I have always been very awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Isn't that great? Sisters.
So
I had a really good friend who unfortunately is not a good friend anymore. But I had a really good friend who was there at the time who still picked on me constantly. But yeah, I haven't heard from her in a long time. So yeah.
Okay. Well, on that bummer note, I'm just picking on you. I'm sorry. So no,
Yeah, Miss Tears episode.
I know.
Jesus.
I'm sorry, I had a meltdown, but we're gonna cry. It's
okay.
gonna happen.
It's all right.
So we left the church after mom and dad tried with the pastor.
Fast forward.
Fast forward to back up to the not present,
When we had, an abusive situation that you're going to hear us talk about probably over and over again because it impacts a lot of different areas of our life. But this, abusive situation, it was sexual abuse and had happened a lot. And when we came forward with the pastors and stuff, and things just kind of fell flat, mom and dad wanted to leave the church. My dad especially. Dad was like the one that was immediately like, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
So dad, and I remember this is when we started hearing the term backslider. Because Tria and I every once in a while would come back to the church because this is our this is a part of our trauma. This is a part of where we were like, really screwed up in the head over the fact that we felt like we had to come back to the church because we didn't have anything else. We didn't feel accepted or wanted or desired anywhere else. And that this was our home, our family, our community in a sense. So it was very cult-like in that sense.
Scary.
And we were so immersed in that specific community that we kept coming back to it, even when we feel or even when we were dealing with what we were dealing with. So, we heard other people call dad a backslider. We, ourselves also called him a backslider, which looking back at it is just kind of what in the world were we doing, But we were indoctrinated so heavily into the church that it was we had to, I don't want to say we had to, but it was expected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the church, like I referenced, I think I mentioned it quickly while I was trying to TLDR this, but it's hard to do. They went on to too many irons in the fire, we're gonna say again. Too many things. The pastor, I think, was too ambitious and too money hungry, and the pastoral staff. And sorry.
No, you keep going because I got a story about that. But keep going.
Okay, yeah. But and the church kind of fell apart and dissolved and kind of split, and a new church formed under a new pastor. I'm gonna cry again. This man
is a beautiful human being.
Tom Clark. And his wife Cheryl.
Both beautiful humans.
it's one of those things where I distinctly remember we've known them since, we've known them for 20 plus years, you know what I mean?
They were the people that you wanted to keep coming to church for.
They were. And it sucks because, and I've experienced this with different jobs where I didn't want to leave the job because I loved the manager so much. I wanted to work for the great leader, And I love Tom and Cheryl so much. And I tried to go back to church because I loved them so much. But they formed, what is it called now? Christian Life Fellowship Church, I think is what it's called, on Morrison Road. Mm-hmm. And Tom ended up stepping down a couple of years ago, and the church voted for Shannon Payne to become the new pastor.
Which he's
an amazing person as well.
He's a great person.
We can name names all day long of people we love and respect. But I tried a couple of times I hopscotched back and forth between going to this church and not going to the church, and going to the church and getting offended, and going to the church and getting my heart broken again, and being offended by this, and just people disappointing me left and right. And it just got to the point where I was just like, you know what, I can't handle this anymore. Because I was going to church for the pastor, you shouldn't be going to the church for the people, right? You should be going to the church. I mean, you should go to church for the fellowship, but you shouldn't be going to the church for the people.
Right. I mean, it matters the people that you're around, and sense of it matters their, their intentions and their heart, because you want to make sure that you're around people with the best intentions. But yeah, it should be something that you go to for your own spiritual growth.
Yeah.
Your own relationship.
Yeah. So that's kind of where my church growth ended, was with that,
Yeah.
And
so why do you feel like it ended? Was it just something that like suddenly hit you one day, or little by little?
Little by little, it just kind of ate away at me. And I just, it's weird because I was a part of the worship team. I joined the worship team when I was a teenager, when it was Christ Community, when Christ Community was still a thing, under Bart Dyer, who we talked about in the last episode. Amazing worship leader. Crazy talented.
Ridiculous.
Rap.
Him and his wife.
It's Trisha, yeah.
Yeah.
Amazingly talented, skinny people. He's always been skinny. Like, he's always been a skinny dude.
If you could see us, we're definitely plus size.
We're plus size, yeah. So I'm not judging. I just they're just very skinny people. Bless them. They're gorgeous people.
Beautiful people.
Inside and out. I'm not whatever. You know what I'm saying. But I remember I was so excited to join the worship team, and as a theater person, as an actor, I'm an actor, I do theater. And we don't have enough time. I mean, we if we talk about this, it's gonna be 2 hours long, so we're gonna have to cut this off at some point. But I want to state just real fast, as a theater person, you have to find that fine line between, as a Christian, between whether or not you're performing or you're worshiping God, and you've done worship too. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
But as a performer, you're there to perform, right? You're there to put on a show. You're there to entertain, and I found times where I was questioning why I was on that platform. Was I there to worship God? Or was I there because I'm a really good singer? Which that's not that's not a brag. I am a good singer. We're both sing, whatever.
Yes.
But seriously, there were moments throughout my time on different worship teams that I found that the worship leaders also really enjoyed quantity over quality, wherein they liked to see a lot of people, because there was a time, I don't know if you remember this, but Christ Community Church did that TV show every Sunday morning.
Yeah, I remember that.
So they really liked beefing up the worship team, so it looked like it was really big. But there were some bitches on that group that were so tone deaf. It was like, you are not helping one bit with the sound. And that was very judgmental. And I recognize that. It's a really shitty thing to say and to think when you're sitting in church. But
a place that's supposed to be an inclusive environment.
Exactly.
That's loving.
Exactly.
And open for everybody to bring their gifts forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they gotta have that gift first.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'm just being a butthead. I'm sorry. No, but you seriously, if you do theater and you go to church, you have to, and you're on the worship team, you have to find that fine line where you're not performing, but you are using your gifts to praise God.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it would make me feel awkward. I'll let you're about to say something.
You're good.
But I'll just say it made me feel awkward because people would walk up to me and be like, "You're so good. You're such a good singer.
You're so talented.
You should have sang that one song that so-and-so sang. That was always good. You should have sang that song that she sang. And I'm like, well, I probably should have, but she sang it, you know? I mean, you know, but this, you know.
But this wasn't about that. It shouldn't have been about that.
It shouldn't have been about that.
Like, it should have just been the fact that, like, we're here to do one thing and one thing only, and that's, you know, to come together to worship God. And it was very distorted. It was very distorted.
And I don't think you and I, were you on the worship team were we ever on the worship team together?
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if you
Yeah, once upon a time. I think it was more at, you know, back when we were, what was that church that we were renting or whatever? We were renting that church. With
Yeah,
Christ
the Seventh
Community.
Day
That's
Adventist
when we
church.
were in. Because I remember Bart put me in, like, when I was really young.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just because he, you know, liked having more voices up there and whatnot.
Quantity over quality. Not that you're... No, you're an amazing singer. No, but I'm just saying, like, beefing up the choir, like, adding the bodies. Luckily, you are an amazing singer. You need to stop, because you know I know that. You're such a brat. I didn't mean it. That was poor.
It was fun. It was fun, though. Yeah, no, it's really interesting to hear you talk about your journey with that, because mine was very similar towards the end. You know, towards the end, because I stopped going to church. I was done, you know. But after we left that church, I didn't do the Christian Life Fellowship route, because Tyler and I got married, and we started kind of doing our own thing. We found a church together. We went to that church. My gosh, we church hopped. I could list names, but we church hopped like way, way, way too much. In the sense of, I kept looking at him and I'd be like, this doesn't feel right. And he's like, yeah, you're right. It doesn't feel right. Yeah. And we would like flop onto another church. And everywhere we went, both of us were always a part of the worship team, because my husband's an amazing bass player.
Yes, he is.
He actually did a couple. He did a couple Christian rock bands and stuff like that, and
he was in a legit band. Like, they were going somewhere with that music.
They went and recorded in Nashville. Yeah,
and that's where it all went.
And that's where it went. But anyway, that's a different story.
That is a different story. Sorry, that just hit me. All these memories are flooding back.
Twisted stuff within, you know, the Christian faith.
Good old Christian folks.
So for me though, like, we were just church hopping so much, and I was always trying to find where we belonged, if you will. And like, you would start somewhere, and of course people like put their, you know, good foot forward first, and then somewhere along the line something starts to twist or not feel right, and that happened way too many times. I will say, and a major shout out to a community church that we were a part of, my husband and I were a part of in North Carolina, Revo,
I forgot the name of that.
Yeah, Revo, yeah. Revo was full of some absolutely life-changing, amazing, beautiful people. The pastor and his wife at the time we were really close with, and honestly, I could say this very honestly, they were some of the most authentic people in the church I ever met.
Weirdos like us.
I loved them.
They were good people.
Them. Oh my God. I still to this day adore them, and they're always like on my heart, you know. You know, Tyler and I have some amazing friends that we have kept from that situation, and who still love us, you know.
Yeah.
Even though we are different and we've, you know, transformed in some ways. They're cool people, you know. So we got lucky in that sense. But even there, like, there were things where it was like we're dealing with people's egos and, you know, really wanting to take over certain areas, or it just didn't feel authentic, and I kept looking for that. And I feel like that's why, and this is just me in general, this is who I am. Like, I struggle finding, you know, community anywhere, just for the sheer fact that I want people who are real. And, you know, if you say something, you are that.
Yeah.
You know, and people who are, you know, being honest. And that's super freaking hard to find in this world. But, you know, So from there, we came back to Ohio. We church hopped some more, and we landed ourselves in this church via a good friend of my husband's, who's still a really good friend and an awesome person. He was an awesome worship leader, like super freaking talented, Chase. And him and his wife are beautiful people, and they have
Leslie, beautiful people.
Beautiful people. My husband went to school with them. They were pretty tight. But anyway, we were part of this church, and it just after a while, I was a part of the worship team. It felt like you had to be something else other than what you really were.
Yeah.
And it felt like you had to perform. And, it might have just been me in some ways, but I do know that there were, situations and instances where it was like, people were applauding me for being good enough to sing a certain song, because somebody else, that was their song. And it was like, whoa, what are we doing here? Why is there some kind of elitism and hierarchy going on here that doesn't need to be present in a place like that? It doesn't need to be present in a place like that, because I keep looking at that shit and I'm like, WWJD, what would Jesus do? He'd look at all of you and be like, you're fools.
I bet Jesus was tone deaf. You know what I mean? Like, I bet
freaking love that.
You know what I mean? I bet, like, he just had one thing. The guy was like, and he was left-handed.
You know what I mean? Like,
we
can't make you too perfect.
He had one crooked tooth. You know what I mean?
Like, I love him. It's so crazy because I say this all the time. I'm like, I love Jesus more now than I did when I was actually in the church. And it's because I appreciate, I believe that he was a human, you know what I mean? Like, and he was present, in this existence. So, but anyway, that's a belief that I have. But, just long story short, it was just one of those situations where it was like my wake up call. It was that Matrix moment. You're going to take the red pill or the blue pill, and I was like, I want out of this. I want out of this because this isn't real to me anymore. So that's when I decided to peace from the church. And it was difficult because like my husband kept going back and, doing playing bass and stuff. And then he would go to other churches and play bass, which, I was happy to see him do his own thing. But for me, it was a done deal. I was good just because it didn't feel right to me anymore. And I felt like majority of my life, I was living in some kind of a lie. So, and I'm really tired of dishonesty.
Yeah.
So my circle of people has slimmed down significantly since I did that. Not only just like church community wise, but family and friends and just everything. I'm just like, but you know what? I'm happier for it, to be honest with you.
Better for it.
So seriously.
Yeah. We've been talking for a while.
We have been talking for a while.
I feel good about this episode. I feel like there's many more things that we could expound upon, but
there's our journey with our churches. That's the church lineage
that we wanted to talk. Lineage that we wanted to share for sure, and just kind of with extra bits here and there. It's the lineage is kind of a bush. It's like
it's not a straight line. It's not a straight line. It's all over the place.
But we really appreciate if you've made it this far. We really appreciate you. Listening, and I think with the video we'll probably, because we had to chop it up a couple of times with the video, you probably won't notice it with the audio because the audio will be flawlessly done by my sister Jania.
We'll see.
But with the video, I'm giving it away here. I'm sorry, but with the video it's going to be chopped up in a couple of different parts, just because we had to stop a couple of times for a couple of different things. But it's all good. It's all good. So if you like what you have heard and seen, hopefully, we've got a Facebook page, we've got an Instagram,
TikTok,
and we got them their YouTubes.
YouTube.
But
we got some YouTubes.
I made a logo for us, the Confessing Heretics. It's pretty. It's just a circular thing with the words. And a cross.
And a cross.
And a cross.
Go figure.
I thought, at the cross.
Oh, my
Oh, yeah, they'll be singing. Anyways.
hymnals are all over the place. Not only hymnals, but
Songbooks of all kinds.
do you know what you know what the song that stays in my head the most?
What?
Like I hear it all the time.
Oh, no. What?
Send it on down, send it on down, Lord, let the Holy Ghost come on down.
Oh, my gosh. They'll be your children. Oh, my God.
Just wait until we get into some more stories about some of the stuff like that, you know, like oh my gosh, like the freaking Easter plays and stuff, which were honestly
God bless
excellent.
Phil Clark. God bless Phil Clark.
Seriously.
Spoiler alert, Phil Clark looks like Jesus, but he's a white guy, but he looks like Jesus.
The hippiest,
He is
beautiful
the
white.
most beautiful. Love him. He's an amazing human being.
Yeah, he's
But Tom and Cheryl, who I was speaking of earlier, their son, beautiful, beautiful human being, inside and out. He sings with the Hoodoo Soul Band in Columbus, if you're familiar with that. But it just he played Jesus on that gosh darn cross every year for a decade at least.
Yep. Yeah, you did.
Oh my god, I can't wait to talk more about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us this time around, and we will see you next time. And we can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. Episode 2 in the books.
In the books, we are the confessing heretics.
Yes. And I'm sure there's going to be some people who definitely agree.
Oh, it's funny because it's true.
It's so
funny.
true.
Oh my
So
god.
they're going to be like, oh, what's this?
Oh, heretics! Oh god, we knew they were going to hell. They got tattoos.
Yes, because that's the part that's really going to damn us. Yes. That's it. That's the hill we die on right there. Tattoos. Tattoos.
We gotta end this. Goodbye, everybody. We love you. Be safe. Love yourselves. Bye.